Hi, welcome to Innovation Visuals Digital Marketing Answers. I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Tim.
And today we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of selling on Amazon. So, Tim, we've had a lot of clients say, they want to move to Amazon. One of the main reasons is that they can get a greater reach. What are your thoughts on that?
So, we're doing the video because I think this is a really complicated question.
Yes, yeah, it is.
And the one that needs real consideration. But you've hit the nail on the head about, people come and ask the question and they want the reach. I mean, there's I think it's 4 billion visits a month to the Amazon platforms. And I say platforms because across all of the different regions. And I think it's something like 300 million people now are Prime members. I mean,
wow,
it's
that's
bonkers,
huge.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this driver is the huge market space that's existing. You've got an amazing ability, particularly if you're early stages, to go somewhere where there's lots of traffic of people wanting to buy. That people don't go to Amazon to waste time. They go there because they want something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it is a question that I think really, if you're selling online, or even if you're not selling online, but you've got a product, and a lot of our clients are things like direct-to-consumer manufacturers, you have to properly consider that question.
So how would you go about considering that question?
So start with the basics, start about product fit.
Yeah.
So if you're selling, I don't know, notepads, super easy to put in a box and send down the many little automated runways that Amazon have got. That's one thing, but if you're selling, I don't know, something like a fishing rod that doesn't collapse, which is long and thin, fragile, or you're selling something bulky like furniture, those products don't necessarily fit very well into the Amazon ecosystem in terms of their fulfillment.
Yeah.
So this is why people like Wayfair and Lowe's have created really good online businesses selling furniture and large bulky items, because the Amazon marketplace isn't set up for that. Now, that said, I'm talking about fulfillment and I'm talking about what they call FBA, fulfillment by Amazon. So you can still sell your bulky product through Amazon and fulfill it yourself.
Right.
But I think you need to start thinking about, why you're going on there and what the fit is. There's also some prohibited items. So the first thing, make sure you're not on the prohibited list. So you're not selling alcohol, tobacco, or gambling things. So we start with that. And in fact, we've got a questionnaire, which is kind of like a self-score chart that people can use to start scoring themselves. And we start off with this: does your product fit, kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the starting point. But then you've got a whole load of other things to consider. It's not just what is your product.
Yeah, exactly. So what other things do you think you have to consider?
Well, I think, and we'll go through these individually, but it's things like the sacrifice of data, your brand position, your current brand position in the market, how it's going to be represented, and understanding the control or the lack of control there. But also margin is probably a really big thing that we need to talk about. Sort of those are big areas that need to be considered in detail.
So why don't we look into the issues around data?
Yes, so it's the sacrificing of data, if you like.
Yeah.
So if you sell on the Amazon platform, you're not going to know who that person is necessarily. So if you're not being fulfilled by Amazon, you're fulfilling yourself. You will know their address, and you will be able to put a card in there, and you'll be able to engage with them. Maybe you stick a QR code on the outside of the box to encourage people to complete a warranty or go to your website, so you can kind of get that action and get that recording. But largely, if you're getting fulfilled by Amazon, you are going to get records of what you've sold in terms of volume by product. You're not going to know who they are. And you can put warranty registration cards in, and you can do things in the box in the product packaging and things like that. But you're only ever going to get a subset of people completing that. So you have this problem where if you're a brand that wants to build long-lasting, meaningful relationships with your clients, you're starting on the back foot because you don't actually know who they are. So you miss out on that part of the equation and then the ability to market to them. But the other thing is you're missing out on, I would say, marketing insight data. And what I mean by that is, if you're online and you buy, just because it's in front of me, a notepad, right?
Right.
Did you also go and buy some pencils or a pen or a bag to put it in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
As the seller of the notepad, the brand owner there, you only know that a pad was bought. You don't know what else was sold with it. So that starts to put you in the dark because you don't know what else you could be able to cross-sell and upsell.
Yeah.
And if you've got your own platform as well, that could be a useful insight that actually people on Amazon, when they buy your product, they typically also add X to the basket.
Yeah, yeah.
You could replicate that within your own site. So there's that part of it. And then there's also the, where did they come from? Now, there is evidence to suggest that I think it's something like 70% of product, like buying searches now start with an Amazon search or something like that. So there's a lot going to be coming from search, but you're not understanding fully from a marketing perspective where those people are coming from and what's driving them there in the first place. You know, what's the trigger? Even things down to things like time of day and stuff like that when people are buying. But what I think gets overlooked on a data perspective when people are selling on Amazon, what they're missing is the people that didn't buy, right? There's no chance of identifying if you went on the site and you looked at the notepad, but you decided not to buy it. The brand owner doesn't know that you went on there at all, has no chance of communicating with you, but crucially also doesn't know why you didn't buy that product. Did you go on then and buy a cheaper product? Did you buy a different colored product or a different size product or something like that? Now, if your visit had been on their own site and it had been just their products on there and they had control of that data, they'd be able to see your user journey and they might see that you viewed that product and then you went to the black product and you bought that, or you went to the bundle because there was a, you know, buy two for a better price kind of thing. Data that other people see is something that you should consider as a brand.
Yeah, definitely.
So you've got this, you've got tools out there which, whilst designed for kind of the drop shippers in the bedrooms, allow you to analyze sales volumes across product categories and products and things like that. They're not just used by, you know, you shouldn't think that they're just used by people, you know, with a micro business. There's some serious players looking at the Amazon inventory and using tools to analyze what's being sold and what's not being sold. And therefore, you've got the potential for competitors to spring up because they see what you're doing is really effective, what you're doing is delivering returns. And then obviously the elephant in the room is Amazon knows so much now.
Yeah.
It knows all the things that you don't know, all those marketing things that you don't know. But Amazon also knows all about your volumes. What's your biggest selling products? Why potentially those are your biggest selling products? And I think that in itself has become an issue for quite a few brands and is something that you need to consider.
Yeah. So do you think with Amazon, you know, knowing all this data about all the companies that sell on their site, they can use that to their advantage?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Jeff Bezos said, I think it was under oath in a congressional hearing, that there was a segmentation between individual sellers' data and the Amazon own brand kind of business units. But there was an investigation, I think it was by Reuters or maybe CNBC, and that certainly, they uncovered thousands of pages of documents from Amazon in India where there was clearly a policy of using data that they were getting from sellers to then format their own strategy when it came to what products to sell. There's a very good example, very publicly known example from Peak Design. So these guys create beautiful camera bags and travel bags and things like that. And they were selling on Amazon.
Right.
And their CEO says they had a, by far and away, big seller on there. It was the standout product. It was kind of like a sling, casual kind of camera bag. And all of a sudden, an Amazon Basics product arrives, which, I mean, I'll let the people watching this video make a judgment as to how similar they think it is. Certainly, Peak Design thought it was extremely similar. And, you know, the argument there was that Amazon saw volume, in, you know, this is the opinion of the CEO of Peak Design. Amazon saw the volume of the data.
Yeah.
And they just went, right, we'll have some of that with Amazon Basics, created the product which was extremely close to this best-selling product, and then went out to market. And I mean, that's your risk as a brand. You put yourself out there, you're going to surrender this data. If you find some fantastic, innovative product that's really great, and it can't be protected potentially with a patent, you leave yourself there open to sort of the copycats.
Yeah.
But to be fair, there's not just Amazon that could potentially do it. It could be lots of other people. It's the fact that Amazon know what your sales volumes are down to the last unit and how they were bought. And then also has the power. Remember, Amazon has the power to push its own Amazon Basics products to the consumer, potentially over and above the branded products.
Yeah.
The Amazon Basics range is now, like, what it covers is huge, and it covers some really big product lines. You know, the Peak Design example is for a relatively low volume product, but people watching this might be surprised to know that estimates show that Amazon Basics batteries outsell Duracell, which was the leading brand.
No, you wouldn't think that, would you?
No, it's bonkers. And then you look at something like Pampers in the nappy space. They think the Amazon Basics nappies are now just snapping at the heels of that brand. And, you know, the power of these brands with the companies behind them, like Duracell and Pampers, those brands, they've got a lot of clever marketing people behind them, and they're having that market share eaten away by these Amazon products.
What about the risk of, I guess it's quite similar, but counterfeit items?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So you don't find the really high-end luxury product like the Rolexes and Louis Vuittons on Amazon. And I think a big part of that is they have a real issue with counterfeiting anyway. The other thing is, you know, if you're Rolex, do you want your watches to appear in, you know, the Amazon architecture presented in the way they are, the same as, I don't know, some cheap Chinese brand that nobody's heard of, kind of thing. So I'm sure that counterfeiting plays a part in them not being present on the platform. But, you know, other products have been known to have real issues with counterfeiting because, as I say, with the data, people can see what's being sold, sales volumes wise, and then, you know, it's the copycat thing. You know, how much of a rip-off is a certain product? Is it trying to really rip them off, or is it just similar and, you know, and just tweaking a few things on the design or even on the labeling? But Birkenstocks was the example that's been, you know, given a lot of press coverage when it comes to counterfeiting.
Yeah.
And they found, because Amazon do say they try and defend brands, and there's a brand registration policy. So you can register your brand, and then you can apply to Amazon to remove counterfeit copycat products from the platform. But the argument that Birkenstock came back with was that it was just a constant battle. Every time they got a seller removed, another seller's popping up somewhere else, and then that's the seller that they got rid of pops up with a different account and things like that.
Yeah.
And they were constantly fighting this torrent of counterfeit clone kind of products on the platform. So they got to the point where they were like, we don't want this. That the only way to say that you're buying a genuine Birkenstock is by saying you can't buy them on Amazon. So they basically cut it dead. And not only did Birkenstocks, the brand itself, stop, but they made it that no reseller, no distributor were allowed to sell the product on the Amazon platform, and any distributor or retailer found in contravention of that policy they said, we'll never ever sell our products again. They really stamped
strict.
it down.
Yeah.
But you can understand, they've got fantastic product, which is loved by people. And if somebody ends up buying a counterfeit one and not knowing, it really harms their brand.
Yeah, definitely. Because they're not getting the same quality, not getting the same value. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's not just that one-off purchase, it's the brand damage over a period of time.
Yeah. So with accessing a large marketplace, what are the implications on the margins?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that when you go through any sales channel other than direct, you're going to sacrifice margin.
Yeah.
So Amazon presents itself to the consumer certainly as a low-cost marketplace, get a good deal kind of thing. So the brand needs to think about how much margin is available to be sacrificed for any particular sales channel. So whether you're selling to distributors in a country and they sell on to retailers, everybody needs a chunk of margin. And the same thing is with Amazon. I mean, it's worth explaining for those CMOs and directors who are looking at this question at the moment, the options of selling on Amazon, because there's kind of a number of different options available which have different margin implications. So the first option is kind of the classic, you sell your product to Amazon, Amazon decide what price to set it at.
Yeah.
And by setting that price, it means that they have their margin, and as long as you're selling it to Amazon at a price that you're happy with, everything's fine. The second option, because that first one is not actually that typical. Most people go in with either the second or the third options. The second option is you access the marketplace and you list your products, you sell them on Amazon then, but Amazon sends the order to you and you fulfill it from your warehouse, your warehouse, the one that you control.
Yeah.
So that's a good one, because then what happens is you at least know your customer address details. However, what you don't know is still a fair bit of data, like you don't know what else they might have bought because you're only getting the one order to send through. And you're also not benefiting from the Amazon Prime play and the speed of delivery, which so many people find so appealing. So this is your third option, which is what they call FBA. So FBA is fulfilled by Amazon. And what that means is you ship your products in to Amazon, by the pallet load or whatever. They go into the Amazon ecosystem, and Amazon decides where those products are going to be situated in terms of warehousing, and then they'll be distributed from there. And it's only if you're doing the FBA option can your products be sold under the Prime banner, because they need them in their own warehouses in order to guarantee that next day delivery. So those are the options, and basically they're going to have a margin sacrifice associated with those as you go from we'll sell it to you to, I think really the primary two will set the prices and will fulfill, and will just lose a margin to be on the platform, to will not just sacrifice a margin to be on the platform.
Yeah.
Effectively, we will pay Amazon to hold the stock, which has a cost, and to ship the stock, which has a cost. So you're starting to look at it getting more expensive. Now, we talked about awkward products. The shipping, the shipping of a product and the holding of the product in the warehouse, the cost of that is going to be based on the physical characteristics of your product.
Yeah.
Because they're smart, they're not going to lose money on it. You know, they've got a very granular system. So large voluminous products, which are maybe quite cheap, they're going to take up a lot of space in the Amazon warehouse. They're not going to want to give you too much. They're not going to cut you a good deal on that because they're not going to make much money from it. So you're going to get charged higher warehousing costs for that. Similarly, if you've got a larger or maybe a more fragile product, although you need to make sure that your own packaging is suitable for shipping, they're going to have higher shipping costs. So all of this relates to this margin question. So no doubt people watching this video, when they start to explore this, they'll get those quotes. They will find out, okay, what exactly we're going to lose in terms of margin. But they often miss out on one of the other important factors on that margin calculation.
So what else affects the margin?
So the other big impact, which often people don't consider when they're running the numbers, is the advertising cost.
Right, yeah.
And this is really critical because Amazon now is an advertising platform as well. And they are making some big numbers on that. So to give you an idea, Amazon made an estimated 31 billion US in 2022 on the advertising side of their business.
Advertising alone?
Yeah.
Wow.
So to put that into context, estimates, I think, for TikTok were about 13 billion. Twitter, Elon Musk's baby, 5 to 6 billion. So you've got Twitter doing 5 or 6 billion in advertising revenues, and yet Amazon, one might think it as a sideline to their business, is doing 31 billion in advertising revenues. So that should give people an idea of how important advertising now is to Amazon.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is going to take a slice of your margin, and depending on what you're selling and what space that you're in, how much you're going to have to pay for that advertising. Because even if you're a branded product, it means that you're not necessarily going to appear right at the top of the results when somebody searches for that brand, because Amazon will present generic or other options, even against a brand search, in that sponsor space. And there's a fair bit of page inventory, if you like, dedicated to this sponsored stuff. So I think that is a big margin hit for a lot of people, and that you really need to run the numbers carefully on that in order to make sure your maths is still adding up on the right side. So
other than the access to a huge market, what else is great about Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, we seem to be going down a bit of a negative funnel on it, and that would seem unfair. Market access is great, but I think one of the really big plays that Amazon has got in its favour is the customer experience.
Yes.
And consumers now have been educated that next day delivery is attainable by everybody.
Yeah.
And I think any e-commerce owner and manager will know that achieving next day delivery is not a straightforward thing for a business. It's hard to do. So if your consumers might really value next day, going onto the Amazon platform and obviously using the FBA option to get on the Prime is really clever way of upping that customer experience, because it's very fast. People know that they're going to get it. And also from a customer experience viewpoint, the returns policy is really strong, although that can obviously kick back on the brand owner, because if you start getting spurious, sendbacks, you could end up with a bill for that. But from a consumer viewpoint, the consumer loves the fact that they know that if there's something wrong with an Amazon purchase, they just fill out the form, send it back.
Easy to return.
Easy to return. And then all the comms around it as well. They get good comms, they get effective comms when certain things are going to be shipped. So there's a lot to be said for piggybacking on that customer experience, particularly for growing brands that might not have the volume to deliver that next day experience. Because if you think about the next day experience as a small brand with small volumes, the problem is that you get this high variability. So one day you might have 20 orders in a day and it's a really quiet day, and then another day you might have 200 orders in and it's a big panic. And obviously, if you're trying to run a logistics operation with that kind of variability, it's very hard to be able to guarantee that next day.
Yeah.
Because you've got to pick, pack, get it to your courier, and your courier's got to be able to get it there next day. And the other thing is that consumers with this subscription to Prime, that they're seeing, oh, I can have it next day and it doesn't cost me anything, although it costs you your subscription.
Yeah.
Shipping next day, if you go as a small e-commerce brand and get a quote from a courier, how much is it going to cost to ship product next day to my customers? It's not cheap. And sometimes that shipping cost is the deciding factor for the consumer where I'm going to buy the product.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, that's going to come down to how much your product costs. Because if your product costs £85, spending £5 to have it shipped next day is not too bad. But if your product costs £15 and it's £5 to ship it next day, it's suddenly a much bigger difference in the cost. So there's things that need to be worked through and really thought about. But there's certainly some real big positives. It's not just that market access. So I hope that I'm not just presenting a really negative face to the Amazon options.
And what about how much control does a brand have when they're on Amazon?
They have to play by the rules. So they don't have as much control as you might want as a brand. And what I'm saying by that is that everything's laid out in a standard way. So as a brand on its own site, say you're producing home appliances or something, small home appliances, so you can ship them on Amazon. You might be at the more premium end of the market, and your own e-commerce site might be really beautifully laid out, and it might have some really great ways of setting out the differential for you as a brand. Get to the Amazon store, yes, you can put your video up, but it's playing in that little box rather than embedded in a nice colourful background. You can put images up there, but everything's very regimented, and it's done deliberately by Amazon to allow comparison. And the problem with that comparison is it's functional. It's, a brand wants somebody to love it, to engage with it, to go, we share your values. That's a brand. When somebody buys a brand that they love, it gives them a feeling, right? There's no feelings, are there, on Amazon?
Every product page is the same.
Exactly, yeah. And the most brutal example of this lack of control as to how you present yourself as being different is the bottom comparison area, where you've got this, and people also looked at.
Oh, yes, yeah.
It's just functional, So, yeah. So there's that control. I think the other thing about brand control, I would say it's about this thing where you don't know who else is going to be sitting next to you on a results page or on the listing pages. So it's before you've got to the individual product detail page, you can't control whether it's a very generic, non-branded, coming in cheap and cheerful brand sitting right next to you, potentially being presented as an Amazon choice, which we know is, it's not chosen necessarily for the benefit of the consumer in totality. I mean, they do it because of the shipping availability and things like that and the pricing. But you could end up finding yourself in a, should we say, a less desirable neighborhood on the page for a nice brand. And I think that is something that has to be considered and considered whether it's worth sacrificing.
So obviously, you've gone through a lot of good points about whether a business should sell on Amazon and things to consider, and it is you know, it is probably more complicated than people think.
Yeah.
So how can we help, you know, businesses make that decision whether to sell on Amazon or not?
Well, hopefully this video has given people some food for thought in terms of the things that they need to be thinking about, you know, and it's very individual for a brand. You know, there are brands that, you know, have things that can defend themselves against some of these problems, some things that they'll get much more of an uplift from the benefits, that kind of thing. But we, you know, with our experience of working with e-commerce clients, we devised kind of like a questioning score chart, which I think I've mentioned earlier on, which we can put a link to in the description. But it's basically, you know, a set of questions to help you self-score, like what level fit have you got? Because it could be that, you know, you just shouldn't be there, like, or maybe you can't be there. So, you know, it's a refrigerated item or perishable item. Well, you just shouldn't be there because you can't do it. But then as you go through and you score yourself, you can see the level to which, you know, from the shouldn't to definitely should. And I have to say, most people fit into a middle ground. And what I would say is that at that point, there needs to be a strategic discussion within the organization. And we've been, as an agency, we've been party to those sort of strategic discussions. And it is not simply a question of marketing. It's not simply a question of it's another channel, whether you open up another retailer or distributor or whatever. It's very much something that needs to have the whole of the C-suite involved within. What is the implication of this? Because what we haven't mentioned in the discussion so far is the impact of making that decision has knock-on effects across your business. So if you're not on Amazon at the moment and you're doing fairly good volumes and you go to Amazon, how much of your volume will move from your current store or current distribution channels to Amazon because it becomes available there? What's the implication for other channels that you've got? So if you're selling to retailers and distributors at the moment, how are they going to feel about the whole situation of your products being available on Amazon? And also what degree to which you've got control of then what happens? Because if you don't have minimum pricing that your resellers have to adhere to, could you find a situation where you go, oh, this is great, we're going to go onto Amazon, and all of a sudden you find your resellers and retailers that have your product listed on their stores, and whether that be physical or online, suddenly also popping up and selling the product on Amazon, and it becomes a race to the bottom on price. To what degree are you going to damage not just your business model, but the business model of those people that you're working with? Because you could find that, you know, you've got a solid, healthy retail distribution channel, and you annoy these people who have been giving you, you know, the premium space potentially in their physical stores, for example, and they're like, well, we don't want to be associated with this. It's now available on Amazon, and we know that people, when they're in physical stores, often, you know, search for products to do a price comparison. If suddenly the product's cheaper now on Amazon because you've got a free-for-all, you've got other distributors coming down on price, you could suddenly find that you start wiping out areas of your existing distribution network. So, hey, we're getting volume here, whoopee-doo, this is great. But if the knock-on effect is actually you lose total volume and comes back again to margin, you need to think carefully about that sacrifice. It might make strategic sense, but it might not. And this is why this is a significant decision. And yeah, you know, I hope that the video, the score chart helps, but why we get involved in these discussions as an agency at the strategic level to help people actually look at it and road test it. And you have to think, you know, the big players, people like Nike, have gone on the platform and they've tested it and then they've come back off. IKEA did an experiment as well, and they came back off. But you have got lots of brands that are making a lot of money. We have clients that are on Amazon, and it is a very, very successful channel for them. and the overall picture of their business is better for being there. But it is so granular.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that you need to consider, and
Yeah.
it's going to be different for each business.
Yeah, and I mean, each business, even if you're in another category or your competitors in your category are there, it doesn't mean that it's a slam dunk for you, for sure. Every company really has to look at this very, very individually.
Thanks, Tim, for that. That was really insightful and very helpful. We hope you enjoyed our video too. So please remember to like and subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, and also remember, this is the Digital Marketing Answers vlog, and we're getting questions coming in from different people. So please put your questions in the comments, as well as other comments. You know, how useful did you find this video? Are there any bits that we missed out? And if you do download the score sheet, you know, please do let us know in the comments how useful that was for you.